Gentleman now from Washington, Adel al-Jubeir. He is the foreign policy advisor to the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. I'm pleased to have him on this program again. Tell me what the reaction is in Saudi Arabia on the part of the Crown Prince and other advisors, including yourself, to what the President said today.
I believe that the President's speech was very positive because he laid out a vision for a two-state solution. He called on Israel to halt its military operations, withdraw from Palestinian towns and villages, lift the siege on Arafat, commit itself to implementing UN Resolution 1402, implement Tenet and Mitchell, make a commitment to end the occupation of Palestinian territory according to UN Resolution 242 and 338. I think overall the important thing now is for the Israeli Prime Minister to take heed of it and to move in that direction.
You just laid out a series of things that he said he wanted the Israelis to do. He also laid out some things that he wanted the Palestinians to do, and specifically Mr. Arafat. Now, what's your response to that?
He was talking about ending the violence from the Palestinian side. Mr. Arafat's response to that, and I can't speak for him, but it would seem to me from just a purely logical perspective, it's very difficult to have security officers prevent or try to maintain security when they're being consistently shot at by the Israelis. It's very difficult to have your security services do their job if their buildings are being bombed and their officers are being jailed and their salaries have been frozen for the past year. I think they both need to look beyond this. They both need to look to the future. They both need to work towards stabilizing the situation and moving towards a political solution.
But it's not difficult to have the leader of the Palestinians to make statements in Arabic forswearing the use of the use of violence and the innocent deaths of civilians from suicide bombers. You don't need your security forces to make that kind of statement.
Isn't it, didn't he do that in December, Charlie, when he gave a speech in Arabic to his people? He signed on to the Arab League peace initiative, which was put on the table for Israel to accept, which they haven't done so far. How often do we have to go through this concept of say this today, say this tomorrow, say this the day after? What's important here is people are dying on both sides. If
it brings a withdrawal of Israeli troops, if it brings some kind of ceasefire, then I would think that you can't say it enough.
Well, we have not seen a response from the Israeli side to a historic peace initiative that was put on the table by the Arab world. We have not seen a commitment from Sharon to end the occupation. We have not seen a commitment from Sharon that he even accepts the principle of withdrawing from territories. It seems to me that people are asking the Palestinians to do an awful lot and not asking Prime Minister Sharon to do the basic thing, which is accept the notion that Israel has to get out of the territories.
Well, they are. They just asked him today to do that. That very thing is what you just signaled, what you liked about what the President said, is doing that very thing. Asking the Israelis to get out of Ramallah, asking the Israelis to get out of the occupied territories, asking the Israelis to come and talk about the creation of a Palestinian state.
Yes, absolutely. And have the Israelis responded positively to any of this?
Not that I know of.
That's the point I was making, that the Palestinians respond positively to some of the things that are put before them. They don't respond positively to some points. They get criticized severely. The Israelis have not responded to anything that's put before them, and yet we don't see criticism.
Well, no, you do see criticism. I mean, I've seen lots of criticism on this program and other places, as you well know.
Well, the important thing, I think, Charlie, is to seize the opportunities that are out there. There's a way out for both sides that was presented by the President's speech. I hope both of them take it. There's a way out for the region presented by the peace initiative put forward at the Arab Summit. I hope all of them take it and they move forward. The important thing is we should really stop, and I'd probably be the first to admit this, we should stop throwing charges at each other and start engaging each other so that we can move the region out of the abyss that it's heading towards.
Can you tell me if your government has been encouraging the Bush administration to do exactly what it did today?
We have been weighing in with our views very clearly and very strongly with the Bush administration. We think that what is occurring in the territories is extremely dangerous. It has negative consequences not only in the Arab world but in the broader Muslim world. We see a tremendous amount of resentment towards the United States in the Muslim world. We see it affecting America's interests not only in the region but in the broader Muslim world, and we have made all of this very clear to the administration. They have to do something to stop the violence, and they have to do something to move things back on a political track. Otherwise, we can be looking at catastrophe.
Tell me more about that. What does catastrophe mean? What does resentment against the United States mean? That the United States, that there is a perception that clearly if the United States stayed away, it gave the appearance that it was giving a green light for Sharon to do what his government has been doing over the last several days? Is that the idea?
That is a perception. You've seen demonstrations throughout the Muslim world in terms of support for the Palestinians and demonstrations against the United States. America is waging a war on terrorism. It needs the cooperation of the 55 or so Muslim countries around the world. It becomes very difficult to cooperate closely with the United States when your own public feels tremendous resentment towards the U.S. I believe that the step that the President took today in giving this speech and laying out a vision will help in terms of easing the concerns that people have towards America's inaction. I believe that if this speech or the contents of it are implemented, and that if and when Secretary Powell, in whom we have great confidence, succeeds in his mission, that we can move this conflict towards a political track and hopefully towards a solution. We all know ultimately what the solution looks like.
What does it look like?
We have a Palestinian state, we have an Israeli state, we have Israel withdrawing from the territories in 1967, we have a just settlement to the refugee problem, we have a formal end to the conflict, we have peace treaties between Israel and all the Arab countries, and we have normal, peaceful relations.
There was a point that made by Ehud Barak in an interview you listened to before we started, in which he said there ought to be a recognition of Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. Is that recognition forthcoming from the Saudi initiative that all the other countries at the Arab Summit signed on to?
Yes. The Arab Summit said recognition of Israel essentially within 1967 borders.
As a Jewish state?
That's the only Israel we know.
So that is implicit, that recognition,
of course,
so there's no bargaining point that Barak can make on that. There's no point to make a distinction between what has not been said or has been said in your judgment. It's implicit.
Right.
One question about the notion of what the President said. He is sending Colin Powell, who's leaving next week. If this crisis is as severe as you and other Arab leaders have pointed out in terms of what it's doing to resentment against America and the crisis that exists, shouldn't Secretary Powell be leaving tonight?
I believe he's leaving over the weekend. He has commitments with European leaders and with the Secretary General in Europe, and then from there he proceeds to the region. I believe that for his mission to be successful, there has to be success on the ground, hopefully today or tomorrow, with General Zinni after his meeting with President Arafat. There has to be an easing of the encirclement of Arafat's compound. There has to be a withdrawal of Israeli forces from Palestinian towns and villages. We need to see that needs to be done, and it depends on whether or not Prime Minister Sharon heeds the President's words and whether or not he wants to work on finding a solution to this rather than being an obstacle.
Most people believe that the Prime Minister of Israel cannot afford not to heed the President's words. Do you accept that idea?
I believe that America is the world's sole superpower. I believe that America has been the main benefactor of Israel. I believe that Israel owes a tremendous debt to the United States and to the American people, and I would find it very shocking if the Prime Minister of Israel will not heed the views of the American President. Ultimately, this is good for Israel.
Also, the President today spoke about Iraq. The Crown Prince Abdullah, made a very public demonstration of a kiss with respect to a moment of support for an Iraqi representative in Beirut, suggesting that there should not be any attack on Iraq. Yet at the same time, it appears that it is clear a goal of changing the regime remains a part of Bush foreign policy, and the President underlined that again today.
Yes, so we have our difference on this issue. We have.
Is it insurmountable? Is it,
We have been very clear in terms of use of force with regards to Iraq. We have said it would not serve America's interests, it will not serve the region, it will not serve the world. We have always maintained that the Iraq issue is an arms control matter. It's subject to UN resolutions which need to be enforced. We believe that we should be working through the United Nations to get the inspectors back into Iraq in order to ensure that they do not violate the UN Security Council resolutions. We've been very clear on this. In terms of the meeting in Beirut, the Vice President of Iraq has been known to the Crown Prince for a long time, and when he met him in Beirut, he said hello to him.
It was not a casual embrace. It clearly was meant to send a political message to the rest of the world.
Well, we've sent that message. We have been very clear in even articulating that message. The Crown Prince has given a number of interviews where he's publicly made those views known. We have not tried to hide away from this. The administration knows very clearly where we stand on Iraq.
With respect to the Bush administration and what you expect it to do, what is it that the Crown Prince and you and other leaders in the Arab world expect the Bush administration to do now?
Well, to begin with, we expect the Bush administration to do whatever is in the interests of the United States. We believe that having this resentment being fueled against the United States is not in America's interests. We believe that having your allies in the Arab and Muslim world on the defensive is not in your interest. That's in general. Now, in terms of specifics, we believe that the United States should do what is just, and what is just in this case is to end the senseless killings and the violence. What is just in this case is to restrain Sharon and order his troops out of Palestinian towns and villages so that we can begin a political process. What we believe the United States should do from a practical perspective on the ground is seriously engage with both parties to move this process along. Never has the peace process succeeded in moving 1 inch forward, Charlie, without clear American involvement in it. With all due respect to the critics of American involvement, it's not going to work without you. And both parties need you, and you have a moral and a historic obligation to engage. I believe the President's speech made it very clear that this administration, from this day forward, will be very engaged in the process, and I hope that this momentum continues and gets stronger.
This President also made very clear the following point, that the war on terrorism is won, and that what is taking place in the Middle East is terrorism that is to be associated with the same kind of terrorism committed against the United States. That this war against terrorism has many facets, and the terrorism that is committed in the Middle East is part of it. And that the united war against terrorism has to go forward.
I think you have a coming together of over 100 countries in terms of the war against terrorism. I believe that as the war on terrorism continues or moves forward, that you will see possibly divergent opinions of what constitutes terrorism. I believe that at the end of the day, the killing of any innocent person is unjustified by any measure, by any stretch, whether this person in this case is Palestinian or Israeli. I believe that the only way to fix the problem in the region is to focus on the occupation and ending it. Give people hope, give people a sense of a better future, and let them work towards ensuring that they can get there. But if the doors are closed before them, if they're desperate, if they're humiliated, if they can't get jobs, what are they supposed to do? Sit back and wait for the Israeli Prime Minister to wake up and decide one day that he's going to be nice to them? I mean, we have to find a way out of this, and I hope that we will. I was born an optimist, and I remain one.
On that note, I thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you on the broadcast again.
Thank you.
Hope to see you in New York.
Okay.
Back in a moment. Stay with us. Charles Krautheimer is here.